In the winter of 1458, something impossible happened on the frozen Danube River. Thousands of Hungarian nobles and soldiers stood on the ice, armed, dangerous, and desperate, and proclaimed a new king. He was 14 years old, he had no army, no crown, and he wasn't even in the country. He was sitting in a prison cell in Prague. His name was Matthias Corvinus, and what he did next would shock every single noble who thought they could control him. To understand how a teenage prisoner ended up on the Hungarian throne, you need to understand just how dangerous the world was in 1458. Hungary wasn't just another medieval kingdom, it was a wall, the last major barrier standing between the Ottoman Empire and the heart of Europe. And that wall was cracking. In 1453, just 5 years earlier, the Ottomans had done something that was supposed to be impossible. They had captured Constantinople, the city that had held for over 1,000 years. The seat of the Eastern Roman Empire. Gone in a matter of weeks. Europe was in shock, and Hungary knew exactly what that meant. They were next. The man holding Hungary together was the legendary General John Hunyadi, a military genius, a warrior, a man the Ottomans had learned to fear. In 1456, the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II, the same man who had crushed Constantinople, marched north with one of the largest armies he had ever assembled. His target? The fortress of Belgrade, the gateway to Hungary. If Belgrade fell, nothing stood between the Ottomans and Central Europe. What happened next became one of the most dramatic battles of the entire 15th century. Outnumbered and outgunned, Hunyadi's forces defeated the Ottoman army in a battle so decisive that church bells rang across Europe in celebration. But the victory was hollow. Within weeks of his greatest triumph, John Hunyadi was dead, killed not by a sword, but by plague. Hungary had just lost the one man who knew how to stop the Ottomans, and the men who came after him were about to tear the kingdom apart. Power in medieval Hungary was never clean or simple, and the moment Hunyadi died, the knives came out. The young king, Ladislaus the Posthumous, nervous, insecure, surrounded by scheming advisors, turned on the Hunyadi family. Matthias's older brother Ladislaus Hunyadi was arrested on charges of conspiracy. He was executed. Matthias himself, still just a teenager, was taken prisoner and shipped off to Prague. For all appearances, the Hunyadi family was finished, crushed, erased from the board. But then, something unexpected happened. King Ladislaus the Posthumous, the man who had destroyed the Hunyadis, suddenly dropped dead at age 17. And Hungary had no king. A kingdom without a king is one of the most dangerous things in medieval Europe. It's an open invitation. Powerful nobles immediately began maneuvering. Foreign rulers began eyeing the throne. The Holy Roman Empire was watching. The Ottomans were watching. Everyone assumed Hungary was about to collapse into chaos or get swallowed by a stronger neighbor, but one man refused to let that happen. Matthias's uncle, the military commander Michael Sereg, made a calculated and audacious gamble. He gathered his army, marched on Buda, and placed his fist on the table. His message to the Hungarian nobility was simple: elect my nephew, or deal with me. On January 24, 1458, thousands of people gathered along the frozen Danube. The vote wasn't exactly free. Sereg's soldiers were watching, but the decision was made. Matthias Corvinus was proclaimed King of Hungary. He was still a prisoner in Prague. Only after weeks of frantic negotiation was he finally released and brought home to a kingdom he had never actually ruled, a divided, fractious, dangerous kingdom that powerful men were already planning to take from him. He was 14 years old, and almost everyone around him believed exactly the same thing. This boy will be easy to control. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The early years of Matthias's reign looked, from the outside, like a slow-motion disaster. Rebellious nobles openly defied him. In 1459, a coalition of powerful lords made their move. They declared Frederick III, Holy Roman Emperor, as the true king of Hungary, and they had a weapon: Matthias couldn't argue with. Frederick possessed the Holy Crown of Hungary, the sacred object without which no Hungarian king could be considered truly legitimate. As long as the crown was in foreign hands, Matthias was a king in name only. It should have been the end of him. Instead, it was the beginning. What the nobles didn't understand was that Matthias had been paying very close attention to everything, to who was loyal and who wasn't, to where the kingdom's money actually went, to why Hungary kept losing despite having brave soldiers. He began building his power from the ground up, not through the great aristocratic families who expected to be partners in his reign, but through the lesser nobility, through town merchants, through men who owed him everything. Even his own uncle Sereg, the man who had put him on the throne, was dismissed when Matthias decided he was done sharing power. Then he turned to the royal treasury. He reorganized taxation, dramatically increased royal income, and with that money, he built something that would change the balance of power across Central Europe forever. In the 1460s, Matthias created what would become one of the most feared military forces in Europe: the Black Army of Hungary. This wasn't a feudal levy, unreliable nobles who showed up when they felt like it and went home at harvest time. This was a professional standing army, paid soldiers, mercenaries from across Central Europe, disciplined, experienced, and loyal to the king rather than to any noble house, heavy cavalry, pike infantry, some of the earliest battlefield firearms in the region. Their dark armor and black banners gave them their name. Their battlefield record gave them their reputation. For the first time in Hungarian history, the king had a military force that didn't depend on the cooperation of men who might turn against him tomorrow. But there was still one thing missing. In 1463, Matthias reached an agreement with Emperor Frederick III. A large ransom was paid. And the Holy Crown of Hungary, the sacred object that had been used to delegitimize his reign for years, was finally returned. In 1464, in the ancient coronation city of Székesfehérvár, Matthias Corvinus was crowned King of Hungary, officially, legitimately, completely. The prisoner from Prague, the boy king on the frozen river, the teenager everyone thought they could control. He had won. But here's the thing about Matthias Corvinus. Surviving wasn't enough for him. Stabilizing Hungary wasn't enough. Even building the most professional army in Central Europe wasn't enough. Because Matthias had a vision that went far beyond defense. He was about to go on offense. His Black Army would march into the Holy Roman Empire. His forces would seize territory in Bohemia. And then, in one of the most audacious military moves of the 15th century, he would conquer the city of Vienna itself. The boy who had been a prisoner would become the man who sat on the throne of the Habsburgs. How did he pull it off? That's exactly what we'll cover in the next episode.